Let me guess, at least once in your life you failed to recall someone's name but were absolutely sure you knew the name? This is one of the many reasons why you should know about the concept of metacognition. And if you thought you needed another reason, think of the lists that we make when we need something from the grocery store. And I personally make a list of activities I need to do before the end of the day. We write down because we understand that our memory may not be sufficient, and well, that's us understanding our memory. And all that is metacognitive thinking. Simply said, metacognitive is thinking about thinking. But here's the catch, it's not just knowing your thoughts, but more importantly, being aware of yourself. So let me explain this in 3 ways. It's firstly knowing when you know something, like I know how to eat an apple. Second, it's also when you don't know something, that is, I don't know how to ski yet. And then there's third, which is knowing what to do when you don't know, which may be in the form of shut up Tasha when you're in the company of 2 pro skiers, go and eat your apple. But let's be frank, it's not as simple as that. Being aware that I don't know how to ski is obvious when I'm high up on the slopes, but what if you're a student on the day before your exam and having read the chapter a couple of times, feel comfortable to go write the exam? But as soon as you see a question in the exam paper that you aren't aware of, you realize, I don't know this, even though I thought I did. As you can probably see by now, this seems to be the perfect case for failure at metacognition. But what if I told you you could take steps at controlling your metacognition in order to get the results you desire faster, whether it is getting through your workday faster or even acing an exam? Yeah, that is possible. And you may have seen it too. Think of it this way, when 2 people are newly married or have recently started to live together, they learn about each other's habits and behaviors. And we may not always like what we see, but slowly and steadily we start to build these structures in our relationship around those behaviors of ourselves and that of our partner. So maybe one partner who may recognize they are a late sleeper will start to adjust their schedule around the other so that they can get to bed together. Now this is an example of how we try to use knowledge from our experiences and learn from them for better outcomes in the future. It's like we are analyzing our failures and successes, and given the assumption that we know how we will react, adjusting our behavior for maybe better outcomes than we did in the past. Now I know this may sound like reflective learning that I spoke about in my last video, which I will tag somewhere here, but it's not. In fact, we sometimes naively use reflection and metacognition interchangeably, but there is a difference. While reflection may be the step 1, in the sense me thinking about my thoughts and actions, observing those thoughts, questioning, analyzing, and maybe trying to gain clarity of why I do what I do, metacognition in fact is step 2, the next level of cognition, wherein I start to control, monitor, and maybe analyze those thoughts and emotions, actually realizing what serves me and what does not. And then here is the important part, modifying either those very thoughts or even behavior to that what serves me. Now, though this meta level of cognition has been extensively studied in relation to how students can improve their learning, that's not why I'm here. I want to tell you how you can change your life by exploring your own metacognitive thinking. So let me give you the blueprint here. The first tool that you can use to build your metacognitive thinking is that inner voice. Yep, it's the same voice that tells you you are going to mess up the moment you decide to take a leap of faith, or even the same voice that tells you that there is a killer when you run to the kitchen for a late night snack. But what I am suggesting is using that inner voice deliberately to our advantage. Let me explain. So we normally listen to our inner voice every day unconsciously, and we often take it for granted. Though that voice may have been beneficial if we were being chased by a tiger, but thanks to all the development by humans today, we don't necessarily need our fight or flight response that often. But what if you could use that inner voice to talk to yourself and reason with it? So you have a thought, right? But what if you could use that inner voice to ask questions to yourself like, how does this thought serve me? Or where else have I seen this happen? Or how certain am I that this is true? or real. Many of us don't purposely use our inner voice to hold rational and reflective inner dialogues unless there is a reward, which is probably why majority of today's workforce pushes themselves out of bed to get to work, knowing how demotivating it may be, but somehow that inner voice reminds us that the paycheck at the end of the month is coming. Another tool that greatly helps us develop our metacognition is journaling. Remember those grocery lists I mentioned earlier in the video? Well, that's a planning tool for the tasks we want to do. But what about the tasks we have done already? Reflecting on one's own actions and then writing those down on what could have helped and what didn't is one of the most useful ways to alter our future habits. Interestingly, writing uses a higher level of planning than speaking because there's more time for us to think when we write than when we speak. Now, the third technique that definitely strengthens our metacognitive thinking is practicing restraint of emotions and that of speech. Now, emotional intelligence building uses the same restraint of emotions in the form of the think it, don't say it method, which is nothing but instead of reacting impulsively, it helps to take a moment, pause, and reflect and choose a response towards resolution. What the mindful pause also does is help us stay open-minded to different perspectives because we do not come armed with our response, but rather empathy for the other person and even curiosity to keep learning. But how does this really encourage metacognitive thinking? Well, the more we are not hijacked by our emotions or our response to a certain situation, the more time we have and motivation to reflect and re-engineer our behavior. And the best part about that is that we also learn about ourselves in this process. In fact, the journey of self-discovery is the most important journey that we will ever embark on. And the more we understand ourselves, the more we understand the world around us. And if that's your goal for 2024, check out my video right here where I explore the #1 mindset shift you need to take on to accelerate your chances of success.